What is the worst thing that you've seen a coworker do and still avoid being fired? Accidentally send the last 3 years of account details and back statements from one company to their direct competitor. Accidentally. Twas but an oversight, my dear. Don't mind my new McLaren. My dad bought it for me. Haha, I came close to this. Within my first few months out of college, working as a design engineer, copy and pasted what I then realized was a confidential, proprietary design that we created for a competitor of the client. My boss admitted blame. He signed off and certified it without realizing I had copied it from a proprietary job until I told him that was my reference material after the job was issued. We have a big database of industry standard reference material we use, but he also said I could use previous jobs as reference designs. However, I was unaware at the time that some of our corporate designs were proprietary. We agreed that, at the level of experience I was at and the training I was given, I wasn't fully expected to know that at that stage. Needless to say, I've not done it again. HR rep found out about a person's elective surgery and made fun of her with a former employee. Let me recap. This person knew about an employee's private medical information because she worked with our healthcare plan in her role as HR, and shared that private information with another person for the sole purpose of mocking the employee. She was not fired. That's not just worthy of being fired. That's 100% illegal. Edit. Please look for yourself. It's not illegal in jurisdictions. Drill a hole clean through a condensate line and have the ceiling of a 3-car garage collapse when the drywall gave. Me. I am that guy. Ask me anything. How did you not die? Barely. I had 3 days off in my office. Now I was honest. It was one of those jobs with more than one teams of 2, and another guy was the lead. But as soon as I saw pictures of the devastation, I knew it was my fault. I told my boss that wasn't X's fault. I did that. I made a 1 in a million shot. I couldn't do it again if I tried. My boss said my honesty saved my job, but I'm at 2 strikes right now. Worst coworker ever was the credit mooch. He would constantly horn in on other people's projects, getting his name added to them to make it look like he was doing shit when he actually not. If people tried to assign him any work on said project, he would have a personal emergency or a virus would make him lose all his work, or his schedule is booked with other project, or the worst, he would pull some sucker in to help him with it, and said sucker would end up doing it all in utter frustration. Because he was so good at stealing credit, he managed to get top marks on his reviews despite doing absolutely zero actual work for the company. I know at least 4 people quit due to this guy getting better raises than they did. Far as I know, they never actually got rid of him. That's middle management material right there. As an assistant manager at a Valvoline instant oil change, I was dealing with an unreasonable customer that had just spit at a female employee that he didn't want working on his car. He didn't know that the guy under his car was her boyfriend. The guy comes up the steps, grabs an oil gun, and starts pumping 10W30 all climate into the guy's window as he's frantically trying to start the car and roll up the window. The employee was reprimanded pretty hard, but it was understood why he did it. No charges were filed. The franchise owner paid a lot of money to have the guy's car cleaned. Obviously, I never saw him again. Edit. I never saw the customer again. If I remember correctly, the employee was suspended for a week. Edit number 2. I'm very sorry that I misspoke. I was an assistant to the manager. Well, this is the only example where I'm cheering for the offender. After already being disciplined and essentially demoted for doing his job terribly, my coworker drunk texted all of our managers in the middle of the night asking why they didn't love him. It's been about 2 weeks and I haven't seen him since, but he's not gone. Not the worst thing he could have done, but I cringe thinking about it. Had a coworker as a standard business practice falsely condemn furnaces in winter to pressure homeowners into buying new systems and pad his commission check. I couldn't do anything as I had no direct proof, but he would joke about it all the time. It did finally catch up with him when one customer smelled BS and called other companies with advanced testing machines, took those results and sued the poop out of him. I ended up working for that second company and haven't looked back. This dude walks a server out of the server room every 6 months or so to sell on eBay. We have literally no security except the front door, but the owner is so ancient and out of touch I doubt she even remembers things are being stolen. We had an IT guy that was stealing old laptops after we replaced them for employees with new ones. Funny thing was that we didn't give him a raise for 5 years since we knew about it, and apparently he didn't want to quit either out of fear of being discovered or due to the extra money he was making. His raise would have been worth more than the laptop, so we just let it continue. Nothing. Documenting work as completed when no actual work had been done. Management knew or was suspicious of it, but not so much as a write-up or reprimand. Eventually, management changed, figured out no work was being done, called it fraud, and canned them. The job was easy too, and good money. I don't get why they didn't just do the work. Job's even easier if you don't do it at all. Full-on sexual harassment. Little backstory. I work in a private country club style dining banquet event space. A drunk on the job manager pinned an hourly server against the wall during a nighttime wedding reception. She punched him in the ribs and tried pushing him off of her. We all saw it. We all reported to HR. Another manager physically removed him off of her. This was about 4 months ago and he's still in his position. She quit due to him telling everyone she'd lied about the entire situation. This happened to me. Jerk harassed 2 other women, asked them out repeatedly, left men's magazines open on his desk to show them, touching inappropriately, etc. And they both filed complaints less than a year apart. Both were ignored and they left the department and warned me not to go near him. Luckily I did not have to interact with him for years and then he wound up my boss. I kept records of everything, dates, times, witnesses, all the way up until he pinned me against a door in full body contact while on a work trip. I left the trip early not telling him and went from the return terminal at the airport to the HR department to file my complaint with months of proof. 2 lawyers, HR rep meetings and interviews. And 13 months later, he was finally fired. He appealed too. I found out a few years later he was arrested for touching a girl in his daughter's high school sophomore class. What a piece of shit. Somebody take his dick away with a knife. A co-worker jumped out from behind a door at my husband, who is a disabled combat veteran with PTSD, dressed as if he was from the Middle East. He was literally trying to trigger a flashback. No repercussions, as he was the boss friend. 2 weeks later, he fell down some icy steps and broke both legs. Karma took care of that one. Eat weed, urinate outdoors on garbage cans in public, masturbate and drink on the job. Was your co-worker a goat or something? Telemarketing co-worker was very obviously a psycho or sociopath. Showed up late every shift by definition. Had quite a temper with authority. It would often just cause trouble out of boredom. By his own admission. The most controversial thing he did one particular day was address every client he spoke to by the N-word. Once the manager heard him, he yelled at him outside for 20 minutes and that was the end of it. A week later, this co-worker denied it had ever happened before going on a tangent about how he liked to start arguments with his girlfriend just to see her cry. Fucking sociopath. Edit. Gonna tack on a reply I posted here because it seems to have gotten buried. He pronounced it with an R harder than a priest in a room full of altar boys every time. Hey hard RN word. We're generic window and door company. Buy from us. I've studied psychology and the current opinion seems to be that psychopaths are born with a lack of empathy. Sociopaths learn to lose their empathy because of their life situation. TBH, I'm not sure why he wasn't fired, and if I had been manager at the time, I certainly would have fired him on the spot. It was a super lax job though. One of the best typical first job environments you could ask for. Think workaholics with a much smaller office, but the manager liked to pal around with us. 2. We all used silly names and tried to goof around in harmless Super Troopers fashion. But this one guy just didn't care where the line was and took everything too far. I work in a medical marijuana state. One guy neglected to check a dry room for a few days assuming all was well. All was not well, at all. The dehumidifier crapped out while the plants were being hung to dry and sat in a warm, dark room for 3 days before it was someone else's responsibility to check it. By that point every single plant was coated in mold and we had to throw out a little over $1 million worth of product. Side note, I had never done the math to see what he cost us until now and am mad all over again. His only punishment was to be denied moving to day shift, but other than that it was forgotten about. That one guy was able to make that mistake and cost you over $1 million seems more like a management problem to me. Got caught with CP on his work computer. Had access to the net taken away but wasn't fired as it's possible he didn't know it was real CP. Edit. Just to clarify a few things. 1. This was about 15 years ago at a public institution in Canada. 2. CP is child nope. 3. Upper management was terrible in so many ways. 4. I talked to a friend who was in the RCMP. She said to me reporting him would lead to the institution lawyering up and an internal investigation would happen. That's all because likely upper management erased the HD and left no paper trail. See number 3. 5. He used Kazaa, an ancient P2P. How is there no criminal legal action taken against him? The FBI tends not to care whether you knew or not, as they should. That's very much not true. Sadly, I found CP on a guy's computer while repairing some software issues. Detectives cuffed him and walked him through the store right past his wife and teenage daughter. The detective kept us updated on the case. The guy was the head of child psychology at a local university. Claimed it was research. Because of that and the fact that he was never actually in any of the 24 videos, he walked with no charges and kept his job till he retired. A guy at the plant I work at scrapped $360,000 in airplane parts because he didn't even bother to look at the work instructions. He just drives a forklift now. Obligatory, not me but my wife. She had a coworker that literally punched a customer. Wasn't fired. He later got into a physical altercation with another coworker. Wasn't fired. Then he wrapped my wife's hair around her throat and play choked her. Still was not fired. Finally, he got into yet another altercation with a coworker and pulled a gun on him, all while on the clock. Then he was fired. Man, what kind of shit did he have on the boss to blackmail him like that? We believe it was racially driven. I'm not one to play the race card, but I genuinely think that was it. Stole a bunch of Mark tools. They were painted white. Showed everyone in the shop pictures of his deer with said tools in the background. Gets reported. Boss calls him on it. He said, "You got me. I stole a gallon of white paint." Never heard the boss laughing so hard. Year later or so he gets promoted. Lol. Damn, that's some quick thinking. Guy at my wife's old job was brought in because he was really good at selling the services they provided. Proceeded to send dick pics to the women at work and solicit nudes from them. Women said to stop or they'd take it up with management, and it subsided some. Solicited nudes from a new chick who asked my wife about it, and my wife went to management with everything and said, "This guy's out or I'm quitting." Well, she quit. Guy's still there, but most of the original female staff has quit. Money talks. Dude's bringing in more money than the sexual harassment issues. Shit's dumb. But if it's not a huge company, then that's definitely why he's still there. I know someone who managed to close an entire supermarket early for the first time in its history, costing the company several thousands of pounds. Because they tried to set a clock on a computer back an hour to avoid missing some deadline for a daily routine. He said it seemed such a good idea at the time. Worked with a guy who punctured the main gas line to our shop 3 separate times. It was a construction company and he somehow was still my superintendent, although he could have blown up the shop. My dad's foreman once put gasoline in something that needed water and ruined an entire asphalt driveway. He's old and forgetful, and only works to get away from his wife. Had a boss storing pictures of himself in only his wide open bathrobe on company servers. It was reported to HR but wasn't fired for it. Later he was arrested as part of an undercover sting where he thought he was meeting a 15-year-old girl about 500 miles away. Way too many questions, comments to reply to all of them. More details. The images were stored in a shared folder used by a few employees. The guy was our IT manager, so he should have known better than storing them there. Assuming the pictures were taken using a work camera, because digital cameras were very expensive at that time and the company had a few. Before he left for the weekend to meet the girl, he had asked to use the digital camcorder I had for work. He told me he needed it to make a video of his home possessions for insurance purposes, but I was suspicious of that, so I told him I needed it for work. We found out he was arrested when he called the computer room collect from jail. This was later in the evening when he no-showed for work that day. We didn't accept the charges but called back later to see what he was charged with. At that time we were told solicitation of a minor, but the whole details came out later when he was on the local news station.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the video. If you liked what you just saw, remember to leave a like down at the bottom. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see a couple videos like this every single week, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.